I certainly was among the people saying there's no way that they're going to change quarterbacks in the middle of the national championship game.
Great call there, Matt. We All right, welcome to Beat Everyone. I'm Ben Flanagan with AL.com. We're back for the last edition of Alabama football's 15 best games of the 21st century. We've been counting down from 15 to 1, getting closer and closer to this top pick, what we consider to be the best and greatest of them all. It's here. It's time to reveal the number one on a list that has taken 15 weeks now to narrow down. Matt Scalisi is with me, Beat Everyone producer, and our pick for the best Alabama football game for the 21st century is Alabama versus Georgia in the 2018 college football final for the national championship for the 2017 season. Matt, welcome back. We're finally here. Let's pause for a minute to reflect here and answer the big question first. Why this game? Why do we consider this the best game since the year 2000? Certainly the best of the Nick Saban era, arguably the greatest run in the history of college football. What sets this game apart?
Well, I think it's a combination of the stakes of the game being for a national championship, which we've already done a few other national championship games for Alabama on this list, but not all of them, which I think says that our criteria is much bigger than just stakes of the game. But also, I think stakes goes beyond the fact that it's for a national championship, as crazy as that sounds, because that should be the most important thing to the fans. But this one felt like it meant more because it was Alabama against its biggest SEC rival of the time, a program that I think a lot of people were sort of predicting was about to eclipse Nick Saban and sort of prove that the Alabama dynasty was over and that it had moved to the east and north slightly. And, I think that almost personal animosity, not between the coaches, but between those fan bases, that made it feel like this game mattered even more. And it made it feel like it was going to be even more painful to lose for whoever ends up losing this game. But then, Ben, of course, on top of all of it, it is a spectacularly competitive game. It has all the things you want from a sort of Hollywoodized version of a football game. A team taking a lead, definitively looking like the better team, an unthinkable personnel decision being made halfway through the game, and it all culminating in an overtime, that for Alabama's part, culminates in a walk-off touchdown. You could not script a football game to be more dramatic than this.
Yeah, and there was more drama than the game itself, right? There was kind of like the game within the game, all of these subplots that made this such a memorable moment for college football fans, certainly Alabama fans. And we're going to get into all that. Matt, let's get to the categories here. The opening drive. In the previous episode of this series, number 2, we talked about the Alabama-Clemson game for the 2015 season. We talked about the heightened experience of attending a national championship game in person. Very true for this game. And Matt, this was my first and has been my only national title game to see live. I was covering it for AL.com. I watched it all from the sideline. I was taking photos for us. Matt, something that we haven't discussed yet, because it didn't happen in any of the games that we covered here, is attending the game or a game in which a U.S. president is also in attendance. So Donald Trump came to this game, similar to the LSU game in 2019, the Georgia game in 2024, which Trump also attended. It obviously further heightens the experience, the atmosphere, the security. It creates a lot of logistical challenges for fans, media, whoever else. I mean, the people who are working the game on an already freezing cold and wet day in
Yes.
Atlanta. Everybody had to adjust their schedules. They had to arrive early and hope that they didn't hit a log jam outside the stadium. What do you remember about that aspect of this and how it impacted your and everybody else's day?
I think for me, the biggest part of it was, you know, my team in particular that I was working with at the time was our video team. And so we are part of that job, I would say, is all about kind of going with the flow and kind of looking for interesting things that are happening and moving towards them, right? And let somebody, if somebody needs to stop you, let somebody else stop you. But otherwise, it's kind of a ask forgiveness instead of permission situation a lot of the time when you are the cameraman. That becomes significantly harder to do when the building is filled with guys holding what look like the guns from the Space Marines in the Aliens franchise. They were they are deadly serious as they should be, and they are securing every spot that looks like anybody might walk in there that they shouldn't. So I mean, and look, I totally understand that, and I have no ill will towards the people who are trying to do that job, which is a very important job. But it definitely intimidates you as a camera person who's walking through the tunnels of the building. You have this feeling that like you need to ask, like, hey, am I going to be okay to be standing right here in about 5 minutes? And you're asking that to a guy who is basically the size of most of the football players who are there and is holding a weapon. So, I mean, look, it definitely heightened the stakes and the scale of what we were doing. But I think once you get out on the field, it did not really feel substantially different. You are that stadium is so great. The Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, it's so perfect for the theatrics of a sporting event. I mean, every seat in that place is good to watch a game from. The press box is great, but if you're on the field filming, it's about as good as you can ask for. It's lit for television, so all of your shots are lit really well, and you can really get a lot of detail of what's happening on the field, and it's easy to move around down there too. So that became a big part of it. Is we've talked about before, covering a game often means you've decided what the story is at some point, and you're trying to get material to go along with that story, and then the story changes, and you've got to really be able to shift what you're doing very quickly work wise. That certainly happened in this game.
Yeah, for sure. It was intense, and yeah, more guns at this game than a normal college football game. We'll say.
I
So
hope
I
so.
just, yeah, certainly. I just want to make this note. Maybe the coolest moment of the day happened to me or for me before kickoff even happened, and like even with everything that would happen a little later that night. So we still have a while before the game actually starts. And then again, like I said, I'm on the sideline and I see this Alabama cheerleader sort of like bragging to his buddy on his phone about a selfie he just took with somebody in the front row over in the nearby end zone. And I look over and it's none other than Ric Flair, the nature boy himself. Like there he is right in front of me. Never seen him live before. Matt, I grew up a big wrestling fan.
Right.
And so this is a true living legend right in front of me. And I think like there's no way I could just go over there and meet him, like I'm here to do a job. I got to stay professional. But then I see sitting next to him is Conrad Thompson. And wrestling fans will know exactly who I'm talking about. He's a Huntsville-based mortgage lender from Alabama. He grew up here, but he built one of the largest wrestling podcast empires ever, and he's good friends with Ric Flair for years. And as a matter of fact, he's now his son-in-law. But I had interviewed Conrad for work not long before this game, and I'm like, oh man, there's my end, right? Like I got to go over and say hi to
They're in
Conrad.
like a field
So
suite, right?
Yeah, well, they're like on the front row of like the stands,
Okay.
right, like yeah, near the field suite or whatever. But anyway, I'm just like, oh man, I just want to say hi to Conrad anyway. And I go over there, he spots me, we say hi. He's in a great mood, about to watch the Tide win a national title, sitting next to the Nature Boy. But he leans down to me and he goes, "Have you met Rick?" And I said, no, I haven't met Ric Flair, dude. Are you kidding? So he introduces me. We have a short conversation. He's super nice. He's already having a great time interacting with fans, obviously taking pictures. I take their photo together and I say goodbye. I'm walking on cloud nine on my way back to the sideline to get to work. So literally nothing else for the remainder of the night. Nothing that happens in this game could possibly top meeting Rick freaking Flair before kickoff, and I stand by that, Matt.
And Ben, I mean, what an arena to see that. Has there been a WrestleMania in Mercedes-Benz Stadium?
I don't think there's been a WrestleMania. They've had it in the Superdome before, but not in Atlanta. I could be off on
Feels
that,
like
but
feels like that'd be a great spot for it. I mean, it's just like
absolutely.
being in there. And you know, I obviously loved the old Georgia Dome, and we've talked about that here before. This you know, a lot of newer NFL stadiums don't have a lot of charm for me. I really like Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I just think so much about it. It's exaggerated in every way, and I think that's what you want for a sports venue.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Matt, it was Nick Saban's 11th season as the Alabama head coach. They are now 2 seasons removed from their last national title. They lost the 2016 final to Clemson. It's Jalen Hurts' second season as the starting quarterback. He's the reigning offensive player of the year in the SEC. He nearly had one of the most legendary plays in Alabama history. He scrambled for a go ahead touchdown late against Clemson in that title game that they lost. But Alabama obviously couldn't get a stop, and they couldn't finish him off. But the thought here is, Matt, that Alabama feels pretty secure at quarterback. They've already been recruiting extremely well at the position, but Jalen Hurts beats out a lot of these blue chip guys. He's a true sophomore, firmly set at QB1. But also on the roster now is true freshman Tua Tagovailoa, a 5-star, just like dynamite prospect. He's the new kid. He's Jalen's backup, and he's going to learn the ropes. And Bama fans already kind of hope he's the future at the position. And Matt, Jalen and Tua are at the center of this entire season, and certainly this game. We're going to get into more of this in a bit. But Matt, what do you remember about Tua, the backup, well before he arrived at this moment on January 8th, 2018?
Well, obviously, he was tremendously hyped coming in. You know, probably the highest rated prospect at the quarterback position that had committed to Alabama ever. But you know, look, as you said, that 2016 season for Jalen Hurts was so impressive, despite the fact that they fell a little bit short in the national championship game. I don't think it was in anyone's mind at any point that that Jalen Hurts wouldn't be the starter for the remainder of his time at Alabama. And I think that was even the case when the team started to struggle during the 2017 season. You know, they're going, you know, down the stretch. They began having a tougher time winning some of those games. They had a really rough outing against Mississippi State that they were able to come up with kind of a last second touchdown to win that game. And obviously they lose to Auburn in the Iron Bowl on the road. And the offense is really sputtering in that game. So I think that there are certainly concerns about the offense throughout that season, but I don't personally remember, Ben, and I could be wrong. I don't remember anybody realistically calling for Tua to get a shot at starting for Alabama that season, because I just think everybody assumed, you know, it couldn't have all just come down to quarterback, right? I mean, this is a team that had won so many games over the past 2 seasons with Jalen Hurts at quarterback. It seemed like an impossibly dramatic move to change quarterbacks. And I truly don't remember there being any discourse about doing it. And I certainly can remember that night saying in the press box, there's no, you know, there was some discussion of Jalen Hurts isn't going to get it done tonight as the first half went along. I certainly was among the people saying there's no way that they're going to change quarterbacks in the middle of the national championship game.
Great call there, Matt. We you're right. I mean, what you're saying about the close of the regular season, absolutely correct. They roll through most of the regular season, and then as the competition starts getting tougher, we see that people start noticing Jalen Hurts still has a ways to go as in his development as a downfield passer, right? He's still a highly effective player. They're obviously undefeated. He makes a lot of plays, but he's got a lot of talent around him. You mentioned the Mississippi State game. We arrive at the Iron Bowl. It's on the road. He struggles. Auburn wins the game. They win the West. The playoff starts to look like a distant memory or goal now. The hopes look dashed essentially. But Georgia beats Auburn in the conference title game. Alabama's still 11-1. They sneak into the playoff. Matt, one question. It's yes or no. We'll make this quick. Did the Iron Bowl matter in 2017?
No.
Okay, we can move on here. Matt, Alabama gets a rematch with the defending champs, Clemson, in the Sugar Bowl. It's the coldest and windiest New Orleans has ever been. I feel confident saying that, though I'm no meteorologist. But thank the Lord the game was played indoors. It's a defensive struggle. Jalen, he does enough to win, including throwing a touchdown pass to a defensive tackle. But still, there are concerns, obviously. And it was at this point, Matt, that I heard the to his name quite a bit. That move was a real possibility that he might actually start that game, the semifinal game, but it obviously didn't happen. Didn't play a snap in the game, but Saban stuck with Jalen. They won on to the national title game. But Matt, do you remember this the same way? Like, did Tua almost feel like an inevitability at this point?
I don't think I felt that way because I thought there's no way
Right.
that Saban will do it. Even if I was the guy making decisions and and I felt that something dramatic needed to be done because let's say maybe I hit the panic button a little faster than Nick Saban does. I never thought Nick Saban would do it. And it's not, obviously that's not me disparaging him as a coach. I just think he has throughout his career been someone who is not given to panicking. He's not given to sort of making a dramatic decision in the moment that may not be the best thing long term for the program. And obviously, I think making a change at the quarterback position in that situation, it was going to cause some internal conflict within the program if he did that. And ultimately, he made the decision, I think, knowing that and knowing that he would have to deal with a lot of that down the road. That's what I think is ultimately kind of the most impressive thing about the decision he makes is I don't believe Nick Saban was only thinking about how to win that game. I think he was fully aware of the widespread consequences of a decision like that.
Yeah, and there would be fallout for sure. So, Matt, Georgia is the number 3 seed in this playoff. They're 11-1 in the regular season. The only loss was actually a blowout at Auburn. They beat Auburn by 3 touchdowns in the SEC title game, and then they beat Baker Mayfield and Oklahoma in double overtime in the Rose Bowl. Sets up an all SEC national championship game, the second one in less than a decade, and the second one involving Alabama. Matt, we're in Alabama. We watch the SEC. We like the SEC, and we've long considered it the best brand of college football. But is it understandable that despite it likely being a matchup between the two best teams to determine who is like a truly worthy champion, SEC fatigue is a fair feeling to have at this stage in the season?
I mean, I get it, but at the same time, like understanding that people have their own biases. Um, this was unquestionably where the best football was being played. I mean, who was the other Big Ten team that they were going to put in the playoffs? Are they going to put Iowa? We all clamoring in the Midwest to see Iowa in a national championship game score 6 points and hold the other team to 9. Is that what everybody wanted to see because they were tired of the SEC? I mean, I just the SEC fatigue thing. I think it comes from a place of deep bias, and I understand everybody else thinks that that all of us who believe the SEC is the best are biased on our own. The issue is that there are actual data points that you can look at, right? I mean, the SEC's record in the playoffs is pretty hard to argue against. And they're also clearly, I mean, they're sending the vast majority of the drafted players in every NFL draft are coming from the SEC. It's not close. There's not a close second conference to the SEC. It's where the best players are playing. It's where the teams that are most competitive against other conferences are all playing. I just think sometimes you gotta eat crow and realize that the league that you're tired of and that you don't like and makes you mad, they're just better than you. And the props to the Big Ten for the last 2 years, or I guess basically two teams in the Big Ten. I don't know what the rest of that league is doing, but that they're Ohio State and Michigan got tired of seeing the SEC in the national championship game. They invested and it paid off. But everybody else, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it from Penn State. I don't want to hear from Iowa fans. I don't want to hear from Indiana about SEC fatigue.
Yeah, you're going to drink this sweet tea and like it. All right, so we have the whole Jalen Tua narrative, but the big storyline heading into this was Nick Saban versus Kirby Smart, Matt. Master versus apprentice, right? Saban's undefeated streak against his former assistants was on the line on the biggest stage. It's Kirby's second year as the Georgia coach. He's already built them into a national power. He has true freshman Jake Fromm at quarterback, an unbelievable running back trio with Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, and DeAndre Swift. He's got a really talented defense, a lot of playmakers. The talent on the Alabama roster is unbelievable. And it's why people look back as on this team as one of the best ever. You got Hurts and Tagovailoa. You've got Damian Harris, Bo Scarborough, Josh Jacobs, and Najee Harris. That's your running back room. That's unbelievable. Listen to this wide receiver room, Matt. Maybe even better. Calvin Ridley, Devontae Smith, Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Cam Sims, Robert Foster. Those are all NFL players. And I won't run through the entire roster, but on defense, you've got guys like Minka Fitzpatrick, Deron Payne, Ronnie Harrison, Quinnen Williams, Tony Brown, Rashawn Evans, Terrell Lewis, Mac Wilson, Levi Wallace, and I'm just getting started. Stacked. Brian Dayball and Jeremy Pruitt are the coordinators. So the talent, like you just got done saying, it speaks for itself. This is the best possible game that we could get as college football fans. Matt, it's the game is a 7 p.m. kick. We're in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. Attendance is 77,430. January 8th, 2018. The game airs on ESPN, and once again, we get Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit in the booth. Tom Rinaldi, Maria Taylor on the sideline. You get all these other megacast options. Zach Brown Band performs the national anthem, and we get ready to kick off. One thing worth noting here, Matt, this was interesting going back and watching the ESPN broadcast of this game. Tom Rinaldi is interviewing Nick Saban, and right over Nick Saban's left shoulder, you can see Tua in the background, walking up the sideline, kind of skipping around either to get loose or to get hyped. It's right at the beginning of a national title game. It seems like there's just kind of this be ready vibe happening with them. So, Matt, we kick off, the game's underway. Not Alabama's best half, we'll say. But the first drive gives fans a little bit of hope. On third down of Georgia's first possession, Fromm throws a deep ball, and Tony Brown actually wrestles it away from the receiver for an interception. So you think, hey, great start, right? Then Alabama goes 11 plays, and kicker Andy Pappanastis misses a 40-yard field goal attempt. He'll come up later. This just becomes ugly football for the first half, especially for Alabama. Several 3-and-outs for Alabama. Punts between both teams. J.K. Scott is a busy man all night. Georgia kicks a couple of field goals, and really Jalen Hurts can't get anything going. He's 3 of 8 for 21 yards in the half. Alabama scoreless. Georgia goes on a touchdown drive with 7 seconds left in the quarter to put them up 13-0 at halftime. And Alabama only has 94 total yards to Georgia's 223 in the first half. And Saban tells Rinaldi that they just haven't been able to throw the ball effectively. He says that it's not just on the quarterback. We know that Jalen Hurts always has this calm demeanor, but he looks a little flat and dejected. So, Matt, here we are. It's no longer buzz. The fans want it. It's almost a given now that we're going to see Tua Tagovailoa come in and take real snaps with the game on the line for the first time, really with everything on the line. Is it a desperation move by Nick Saban? Is it too little, too late? We really have no idea what we're about to see. Matt, pulling Jalen Hurts and finally giving Tua his shot here felt seismic.
I mean, it was truly incredible that he did this. And we talked about last week, Ben, how out of character it felt for Nick Saban to call for that onside kick against Clemson in the 2015 season national championship game. It didn't feel like something he would do given his history. This was an even more out of character decision. And I look, he also had the benefit of seeing this team in practice all season long. And I have to believe that he understood that Tua's ability to get the ball out was going to be helpful in this situation. A guy who saw the field so quickly and got the ball out of his hands to his receivers lightning fast. That was obviously something that was going to be hugely helpful in a game like this where Georgia is selling out and they are coming after the quarterback every play defensively. I think the other part of this too is beyond Tua, because Tua's not really the only freshman who ends up getting extra playing time in the second half. We start to see Najee Harris get more carries later in this game than he had been getting for most of the season. Tua also, I think, has a bit of chemistry with the younger receivers, in particular Devontae Smith. And it's so crazy, Ben, because this is going to be the cringiest possible analogy that I'm going to use. But you listed off all the incredible talent on this roster, and as good as they are, this suddenly becomes this moment. And I'm gonna point to Avengers, where right there you've got all the superheroes together that you could think of, and suddenly like a bunch of portals open and some more come out. That's got to be what this felt like. If you're Georgia, you're like, they've got more guys that are this good that we haven't even been able to prepare for this game. It is the moment when Alabama's recruiting depth uh became kind of the ultimate weapon in a game like this.
Yeah, and Alex Leatherwood was another guy who had to come in at left tackle because Jonah Williams went down. So, Alabama punts on their first possession of the second half. Georgia goes 3 and out, and then Alabama finally puts something together. 7-play drive. Tua finds Henry Ruggs for a touchdown. It's 13-7, but Georgia responds with a score to go up 20-7. And then Tua throws an interception, and suddenly it feels like it's kind of slipping away. Like maybe the moment was too big for the true freshman. But on the very next play, Raekwon Davis comes up with an interception. Alabama gets it back. They get a field goal. So it's back to a 10-point deficit. The defense continues to step up, and Tua in the offense get all these opportunities. But something that you immediately notice with Tua, Matt, to your point, is he can see the field, right? Like he starts spreading the ball around. He's finding Ridley, Ruggs, Judy, but he's also getting Robert Foster and Cam Sims, the entire unit involved. So like Tua's making an impression, and he's living up to the hype as a guy who can sling it and see the field. So Bama keeps forcing Georgia punts, and Alabama pulls within 7 behind a Papanastis field goal. And then with about 4 minutes left in the game, Alabama drives down to the Georgia 7-yard line, and Matt, on 4th and 4, they go for it. They have to. Tua's got a pretty clean pocket, but then he rolls left and he lets it fly. And Matt, this play still gives me anxiety when I go back and watch it because it looks like that
It's
he's actually passing the ball to Najee Harris in the back
yes.
of the end zone before Calvin Ridley swoops in for what almost looks like an interception. It's crazy, and Alabama scores and they tie the game.
Well, I mean, and to be clear, if Ridley wasn't there, I think it's still completed to Najee. But I think what you're starting to see at this point in the game, Tua is the nerves are gone. He is feeling that speed of the game, and he's seeing the field. He's seeing his guys get open. He's seeing the lanes he has to pass through that we would know him so well for in the seasons after this. And I think Georgia similarly is starting to get tight. I think they are saying we prepped a strategy for this game. We thought we knew where the weak point was and what to attack. And now all of that is out the window. We cannot rely on any of our preparation for this game, and we have to take a completely different approach on the fly.
Yeah, and once again, Georgia goes 3 and out. Alabama has an opportunity to win it in regulation. I mentioned Alabama's running back depth here, but you said Najee Harris and the opportunities that he got. He's got the hot hand down the stretch here. He comes up huge in the fourth quarter, and Alabama is moving on this final drive. They get a couple of first downs, they get a face mask penalty. They are in field goal range, and they're churning clock. I mean, Tua's running keepers even for first downs. So during this drive, this is an interesting little subplot here. We see kicker Andy Pappanastis warming up for what will be a game-winning field goal attempt as time expires. And then the camera catches Alabama running back Damian Harris walking up to him to sort of hype him up, encourage him. So Harris actually he appeared on a podcast called Until Saturday with some hosts from The Athletic, where he talked about this moment. He said, quote, "When we played Georgia in the national championship, we had a chip shot to win the game. And I remember I walk up to Pappanastis and I put my arm around him and I said, 'Listen, dude, you're about to win us the national championship. How does that feel?'" Harris said, he went on to say, he just looked at me and he gave me a hug and he was like, "Thank you, man." And it seemed like I gave him a vote of confidence that he didn't already have. And then he went out and he effing botched the kick. I take full responsibility.
Yes, as you should, Damien. Yeah, look, he got it. He absolutely you have to quarantine the kicker in a situation like that.
Yeah,
You
leave him
cannot
alone.
allow players to talk to him in any way, no matter
Yeah.
what their intentions are.
I remember there was an Alabama staffer too. He was on his knees, his head was buried in his hands, and he was praying as Pappanastis was warming up next to him, like 2 feet away. So it just wasn't looking.
God wasn't
Yeah,
listening.
no. So Pappanastis, he had already made a 30-yarder in the game. He's perfect on extra points. Alabama does everything that they're supposed to do. They run the clock down to 3 seconds. They put the ball in the center of the 19-yard line. They set up a chip shot to win the national championship. And Matt, something I think that people forget is that Jalen Hurts actually came back into the game to run the final play before the field goal kick to ensure that they positioned the ball exactly where they wanted it for the kick. So Georgia's out of timeouts. They can't ice him, but they don't need to. Pappanastis hooks it wide left. His plant foot slips a little. We're going to overtime. Matt, Alabama fans not feeling great at this point.
No, but look, Georgia's offense had gone cold in the second half, and really they hadn't done a ton the whole game. Alabama's defense kept this thing within reach. Um, 13-0 at halftime for whatever reason, it felt impossible to overcome. But it's in retrospect, very impressive that Alabama kept it to just 13, given how many opportunities Georgia had with the ball in the first half. But Ben, I don't, you don't want to end regulation with a missed chip shot, but I still ultimately felt like the momentum was for Alabama in this moment. And I think, especially when you get into an overtime situation where what it comes down to, I think, is who has an offensive edge going into overtime, who is feeling their selves offensively more. That's who's got the edge in overtime. And to me, Alabama clearly had the better second half offensively.
Yeah, for sure. And on Georgia's first possession, the defense once again outstanding. They stuffed Nick Chubb on a couple of runs. Then Terrell Lewis, this guy who has battled injuries his entire career and has worked his way back for this game, he sacks Jake Fromm for a 13-yard loss. So it's 4th and 19, not a chip shot for them, but Georgia's excellent kicker, Rodrigo Blankenship, drills a 51-yarder
He
to
had a
give
huge
them
game. Yeah.
to give them a 3-point lead. Just outstanding and clutch by him. So, Matt, this brings us to what we affectionately call the kill shot, right? So, Alabama needs a touchdown to win it, obviously. They could tie it with a field goal, but they're going to want a touchdown. It's 1st and 10 from the 25. Tua has nowhere to go with the ball. He eludes a couple of defenders, and then he drops back, and he gets dropped for a sack. He loses a bunch of yards, 16-yard loss, but it's a miracle that he didn't fumble it, frankly. Saban's losing it on the sideline, and now it's 2nd and 26. The energy is hot. Everybody is focused on the sack. in the position that Alabama is in now, it's not looking good. Georgia fans are riding high. Everybody's cheering. The next thing you know, the ball is in the air as Chris Fowler is mid-sentence saying Tagovailoa will try to make up for it. Tua Tagovailoa throws a 41-yard bomb down the left sideline to a wide open true freshman, Devontae Smith, makes the catch, strides into the end zone for a game-winning touchdown. All hell breaks loose. So, Matt, I was on the opposite end of the field when this happened, the opposite corner. In fact, my job was to cover the Alabama fan section. I usually like to stick around where the students are, where the $1 million band is. I'm watching from literally 100 yards away, but I see the ball in the air. I hear the place lose their freaking minds. And either as just a longtime fan or as somebody in the media, you kind of hesitate and you wait for
Yes.
confirmation. You wait for the flag, right? But I see confetti drop and then I know it's over. Like I'm actually in disbelief. I rush up to the $1 million band section as they strike up Rammer Jammer. People are sobbing. They're hugging. They can barely play their instruments. The band directors are even screaming at the cameras like everybody's out of their bodies. It's pure pandemonium, Matt. Alabama has won the national championship in walk-off fashion. Matt, what was your vantage point? What do you remember?
I was on the Alabama sideline, just next to where you're allowed to be. So there's, kind of a box there that the players are allowed to be in, and I was right next to that, and actually standing right next to Terrell Owens, which I was not doing on purpose, just kind of sidled up to the sideline. And there's a lot of tall people down there. You don't know who you're standing next to, and he's sort of chattering with me a little bit in the final moments of that game. We kind of were watching the missed field goal and watching Tua take that sack, and he's kind of narrating to himself what's going on, and then the play happens. I remember briefly exchanging with Owens about who caught the pass, because again, like you said, it happened so fast. I literally couldn't even tell who had made the reception. Um, and it was it was one of those moments where, like you said, Ben, the game is moving faster than my brain could process what was happening. And I had my job in that situation once again was to hand out the newspapers, uh, proclaiming Alabama's win. But it took me a second to realize what was going on, and so I run out onto the field and start handing them out to people. But it was definitely a moment that I think from the stands, it was probably a little easier to tell what had happened than from the sideline. And you can see a little bit of that confusion on the Alabama sideline too if you go back and watch the broadcast. Like, people have to kind of look at each other and say, what happened? Did we win? Did we get it? Like,
Yeah.
there's a little hesitation, and then there's just an immediate dog pile in the end zone. Um, just a level of jubilation and spontaneous celebration from Alabama that honestly you don't really see in any of their other national championship games.
No, and at a national championship game, it's that setting where you can just like look to your right or your left, and there's To and you're having a
Yeah,
conversation with
right.
them. Pretty cool. So yeah, and on that note, Matt, the jubilation thing, Tom Rinaldi has an uncharacteristically giddy Nick Saban
Hmm.
post game, but Saban is already talking before he can ask him a question. He says, "I'm going to ask you a question. Was that a good game or what?" So even the stern Nick Saban can't deny or escape the emotions that are overcoming everybody on the Alabama side here. He talks about the resiliency of the team, overcoming adversity, the standard Saban coach speak. He gives Georgia credit, says he's proud of the players, said the Tua move came because they thought they would have to throw the ball in the second half and that he could do it better. At the end of the interview, Nick Saban says, quote, "I've never been happier in my life," end quote. And Tom Rinaldi's taken aback by that. Saban's good pal, Maria Taylor, talks to Tua. A star is obviously born here, and we're going to get into the aftermath of that in just a second. They send it back to Tom Rinaldi. He has Jalen Hurts with him, who is smiling. He's shaking his head. Rinaldi asks Jalen his reaction to getting benched for Tua. Jalen says, quote, "I knew he was going to step in and do his thing. He stepped in and did his thing for the team," end quote. He said he just told Tua to ball. He said that he was happy for him. Rinaldi asks how it feels to be a national champion, and he says it's unbelievable. It's a dream come true. Matt, I want to make this quick point again. We've covered this before, but I always get the feeling that it only took one half of football for Jalen Hurts to be sort of docked credit for leading a team to a national championship season. He played every meaningful snap for the entirety of 2017, other than one half. And Jalen Hurts is a national championship winning quarterback. Like again, to me, like the closest analogy is kind of like it's like a starting pitcher, right? Like if Greg Maddux starts Game 7 of the World Series and just doesn't have the stuff that night, the bullpen can come in and they can save it and finish it off and they still win the game. Does that mean he's not a World Series champion? I mean, I know that it's apples and oranges here, but you know, I hate the way some people can kind of take away from everything else he accomplished and contributed that season.
Sure. And I mean, look, the fact that he even spoke to Tom Rinaldi in that moment is remarkable. I don't think one out of 1,000 starting quarterbacks would have the maturity and composure in that situation to go and do a national TV interview at that precise moment where you have to be flooded with so many conflicting emotions. And Jalen chose to do that and say yes to it. And he also chose that moment to praise his teammate and talk about how proud he was of him and how much confidence he had in him. It's just there are almost no guys in history that are like Jalen Hurts, that have that level of intangible leadership ability. And um, it shouldn't have taken the pro career he's had for people to appreciate him, but I do think it is starting to prompt some Alabama fans to maybe rethink their opinion about Jalen Hurts and realize he was a huge part of everything that team accomplished, even when he wasn't the starter.
Matt, who's the MVP of this game?
I think we got to go with Tua, Ben. I mean, look, he to step into that situation. I just talked about Jalen's composure. No matter how excited you are and how good of a player you are, nobody expects to get thrown into the second half of a national championship game down 13 and have to come back and win it. That is an incredible highest possible level of difficulty to start your college career as a starter. And he stepped up. He came through. He did all the things that we would eventually know Tua to be great at. Um, his vision of the field, his ability to get right back up from a negative play and turn it into a positive. I mean, it was all on display right there.
Yeah, he goes 7 of 13 for 54 yards, a touchdown and a pick in the third quarter. And in the fourth quarter in overtime, he's 7 for 11 for 112 yards and 2 touchdowns. So the answer is Tua. The defense was unbelievable just as a unit in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter and overtime. They were lights out. They gave Alabama every opportunity to get back into the game. You obviously also have to think Nick Saban here. It's the best in-game coaching decision he ever made, but Tua is the answer. All right, Matt, we quickly run through our takeaways here. So this is Nick Saban's 5th national title at Alabama. This is actually the 4th national title game that we've covered in this series. We left out the 2011 BCS title against LSU. That was a 21-0 blowout in New Orleans. And then we left out the 2020 blowout of Ohio State in Miami. So this is bittersweet for many. The sweet obviously outweighs the bitter by a million, but it's essentially the end of Jalen Hurts' career at Alabama, at least as the starting quarterback. With one half, again, literally one play, Tua has overtaken the job and the future of the position of the program. Instantaneously, he becomes the face of Alabama football. And Matt, I just want to make this point. This has to be in conversation for the best play in college football history. Like it just has to. Like the circumstances and the stakes of an individual play have to matter. And we've seen a lot of amazing walk-off plays, no doubt, like the band on the field in the Stanford Cal game. Amazing moment, a walk-off kickoff return for a touchdown. The guy's running through a marching band. It's just like surreal. But it was Stanford Cal in a regular season game. One team was 5-5 and the other was 6-4. So who cares, honestly? And then the kick six, that's going to be thrown in our faces clearly. It's an amazing play. The stakes were really high. The winner goes to the SEC title game. They ultimately play for the national title. but Auburn blew it. They lost. It diminished that moment in retrospect. This play won a national championship. This is a grand slam in the bottom of the 10th inning to win the World Series. Like the highest stakes, a bomb touchdown pass, the changing of the guard at quarterback, the origin story of legendary players. It's undeniable.
I mean, the only play I could say is even a contender with this would be Vince Young's rushing touchdown in the national championship game for Texas against USC. That was a similarly kind of spectacular moment from an amazing athlete that sort of sealed a national championship. But I think he can give the edge to this play because it's in overtime. It's against a conference opponent. And everything else we just talked about, the fact that he wasn't even the starting quarterback in that game. I mean, it's completely improbable and spectacular.
Matt, this was instantly seen as the Tua origin story, and rightly so. That's fair for obvious reasons. And we know the story of Nick Saban buying into the spread offense era and there being a big sea change, bringing in Lane Kiffin, putting up a ton of points with a greater emphasis on explosive playmakers. And Tua would lead to Mac Jones and he would lead to Bryce Young. Like it was the era of the first round draft pick quarterback at Alabama. But in retrospect, this is just as much the Devontae Smith origin story.
For sure.
So the guy on the receiving end of the Tua throw didn't get nearly as much attention and praise. It could have been anyone, right? But Smith plays another 3 years at Alabama, ultimately becomes arguably the best player in Alabama football history, sets records, wins the Heisman, is the focal point of another national championship team. Is this also the Devontae Smith game?
I think, well, it's funny because it's a very important game, obviously, in his story and in his career. Um, and we just said it's one of the greatest plays, if not the greatest play in college football history. But I think it would be because of the timing, because of where it falls in his career. I think it would be wrong to say that this is the biggest play of Devonte Smith's career. It was more of a play that put him on the map. It was kind of a foundation that he built off of. Although, even though, look, obviously not nearly as many people were watching it. But if you go back that season, Devonte Smith makes a game-winning reception touchdown against Mississippi State, and look, I think a lot of people would just looked at that more as a relief, but it was a big play. He came up in a big moment and stepped up and made something happen to win a game for his team. To me, I think you would see him have other huge games. I know there's an Ole Miss game where I believe he scored uh, 4 receiving touchdowns in that game, maybe even more
I
than
think
that,
five.
possible. Yeah. Um, so, I mean, he had times later in his career where he was totally dominant, uncoverable. And then obviously the 2020 season, he became, I think, one of the greatest college football players of all time. He became so utterly dominant in a position that is not traditionally that dominant, especially not at a program like Alabama where they have so many hands to spread the ball around to. And obviously he's gone on to make a huge play in a Super Bowl and help get his team there in the first place. A obviously special player from the beginning, and watching this play, it almost makes you wonder, was the sack that Tua took on first down, did it actually make it easier for him to throw this touchdown? Because Devontae beats his man downfield very, very quickly. I mean, the ball comes out of Tua's hands so fast because he pretty much immediately knows Devontae has his guy beat and the safety's not going to get there in time.
Yeah, and Tua kind of famously joked that Saban got all mad when he took the sack, but Tua told him that he just needed more room to make the next pass, right? So
It
good,
does
good,
kind of look that way. Yeah.
good line by Tua there. Good call by Brian Dable, by the way.
Yeah.
Tua plays 2 full seasons as the starting quarterback subsequently. He is, as advertised, just a lights out passer who might have even deserved the Heisman Trophy in 2018 had he played any of the second halves of those games during the regular season. But part of his legacy is he can't stay healthy both in college in the NFL. Still, he's arguably Alabama's best quarterback ever. Dude was a Terminator. He's drafted in the first round and he plays for the Miami Dolphins now. It's kind of the same story with him. If he stays healthy, the Dolphins can be competitive. Jalen Hurts sticks around for one more season. He becomes Tua's backup. We covered what he did in the 2018 SEC title game. He steps in for an injured Tua. He saves the day, and then Alabama falls short in the national title game, unfortunately. But Jalen transfers to Oklahoma, really develops as a passer under Lincoln Riley. They go to the playoff. Jalen is a Heisman finalist, loses to Joe Burrow. He's drafted in the second round of the Philadelphia Eagles, becomes a starter there, goes to one Super Bowl, loses that to the Kansas City Chiefs, takes them back just last season. They win in a blowout. Jalen Hurts is Super Bowl MVP. Kind of works out for everybody, right? Devontae Smith is obviously a teammate of his. They connect for like a 50-yard bomb touchdown in that game. So really cool to see that happen. But I wanted to make this analogy saying that it kind of works out for everybody. It almost reminds me of the Montreal screw job if you're a WWE historian, Matt. And by no means was Jalen screwed or anything like that, but it just reminds me of like Bret Hart feels underappreciated. He leaves the WWE for WCW, gets rich, paves the way for Stone Cold Steve Austin and the rise of the Attitude Era. Everybody wins, right? So that's just one thing I thought of.
Just comparing it to another entirely real sport.
Exactly, right? Still real to me, dang it. But really, Matt, this is just storybook stuff in
Yeah.
the way that it worked out for both guys. Um, Kirby Smart keeps the Georgia train rolling. Alabama, Georgia, as you mentioned earlier, it really becomes the new bar in college football as a rivalry. They meet again several times, including a national title game in Indianapolis, which Georgia won in 2021. But otherwise, Alabama and Nick Saban own the rivalry. Alabama has won 9 of the last 10 meetings. Saban went 6-1 against Kirby, and Alabama has the latest victory from the 2024 season, Kalen DeBoer's first year, but they will play again in 2025 at Georgia. Matt, what did I leave out here?
I think you nailed it, Ben. I mean, this was this is I think in terms of feathers in your cap, if you are a fan who was alive and watching when this game happened, you have no good reason to complain about your life as a sports fan for the rest of your life. This is as there are the vast majority of American sports fans will never see a team they care about win a championship in a fashion this dramatic and this exciting. I think not my place to tell Alabama fans that they're spoiled, but I think looking at stuff like this in your history, how can you not how could you ever feel deprived? How could you ever feel like you haven't seen enough from your team? I mean, it's always fun to see more, but everybody else that cares about sports is jealous of you, Alabama fans, because of stuff like this. And
Yeah.
this is only one part of it.
Yeah, one of many. Truly have everything as a fan base, especially during this run. I mean, 6 national championships. Obviously, you've got one in walk off, thrilling overtime fashion. I mean, you've got the first round draft picks galore, the number 1 overall draft pick, 4 Heisman trophies. I mean, it's truly stupid, and so you're right to point that out. But Alabama fans know it, and they don't care, and they'll take more of it. They'll take more of it. So Matt, that's number 1 on the list of Alabama's 15 best games of the 21st century. It's over. We did it. Folks, did we get it right? Were we wrong? Were we kind of close? Were we way off? Matt, you've been here for all of it. 15 games, 15 episodes, 15 weeks looking back at the best games and moments from the last 25 years. Let's take a quick second. Matt, what missed the cut? Was there a game like? Do we have honorable mentions that we just had to leave out of the conversation? Do you recall some of the others that we thought about including?
I would have to go back and look. I mean, I think I'm glad we got a Texas A&M game in there, the Johnny Manziel revenge game. But I think obviously, look, Shula is probably not very well represented, the Shula era on this list. And there were a few fun ones, especially in 2005, a very dramatic season with a lot of close wins for that team. if I had to pick one Shula era game to put up here, I'm probably that didn't make the cut because we did talk about 2005 against Florida. I'm probably going with that Cotton Bowl game against Texas Tech and Mike Leach. That was a low scoring affair, but very fun, very dramatic. Had a spectacular touchdown play to Keith Brown in that game, and won with one of the ugliest walk off field goals that you will ever see in a game to seal that win. And like it felt like a pretty positive moment at the time. It felt like a big deal for Alabama to win a game that important.
Yeah, the Jamie Christensen knuckleball
That's right.
field goal. I mean, he should put a trademark on that. Brody Crowell, when we talked to him about that 2005 Florida game, he made a comment or something like that about his old teammate Jamie Christensen. But you could count on the guy who was clutch. That's a good pick, Matt. I mean, honestly, like there are so many from the Saban era that you could pick. Like you might have just enjoyed more than the other, but I mean, the 2024 Georgia game, the Kalen DeBoer Georgia game, that was
Oh yeah, for
thrilling
sure.
and just had so many amazing moments. And Ryan Williams was obviously a breakout star. It's one of Jalen Milroe's greatest games as a player. But also, I mean, if we're going to stick to the Georgia script here, the 2023 SEC championship game really satisfying for Alabama fans. And again, a great game from Jalen Milroe and the rest of the team against a formidable Georgia team, defending champion, and it cemented Alabama's or clinched Alabama's spot in the college
Yeah.
football playoff that year ultimately, and they would obviously go on to lose, but that was
We
a really fun one. So there are
yeah,
many games here.
I would say also we did go with the 2021 Iron Bowl. I think you could have gone with the 2023 Iron Bowl as well, although a very difficult game to watch for the vast majority of it. Uh, Maybe the most spectacular ending to a game that of any of the. I mean, it's right up there with the one we just talked about.
Yeah, Georgia blackout game too in 2008 when the entire stadium wore black and Alabama quickly silenced them. Did that make the list? It's been so long. I don't think
No,
it
I
did.
don't believe the blackout was
Yeah.
on the list, Ben.
So, golly, a lot of Georgia games, a lot of Georgia wins, Matt, a lot of them. So, yeah, but it's been great. It's been a lot of fun. And, you can find Beat Everyone on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. And, Matt, thanks as always to you, our Beat Everyone producer. We did it. Thanks again.
We did it. I'm excited to dig into the new season, the upcoming season, Ben.
Yeah, here's hoping those make the list on a future uh, edition of whatever we decide to do on this ridiculous thing that we call a podcast. It's been a fun ride here, though. Go back and check out all 15 episodes. You really won't regret it, Alabama fans. If you haven't relived these moments with us, go back and do it. It's a ton of fun, and we want to hear from you. So sound off in the comment section. We always appreciate it. Until next time, I'm Ben Flanagan with AL.com. Thank you so much.